Um, Great. And then just a quick housekeeping note. Please, in order to reduce distractions and keep background noises down, please do make sure that you're on mute unless you're, asking us a question at some point towards the end. I don't, for some reason, sometimes I can mute people, sometimes I can't. So if you could just pay attention to that, that would be super. So now that I've got those little housekeeping items taken care of, I'm going to hand it over to Kaylee to kick us off.
Thank you very much, Melinda. And good to see all you here, some familiar faces, some familiar names, and some others that I am having the pleasure to hopefully meet soon. My name is Kaylee Bright. I am the Division Director here at the Division of Land Resource Protection. And we are really excited to launch this program. It's kind of a new program, but it's really just a program doing a whole lot of things we do and have been doing across our other programs that focus on building capacity for our partners to be able to deliver all of the great projects to meet all of our ambitious goals across the Natural Resources Agency. So this program is just it's kind of this nice statement of support for, and in many ways, it's pretty historic statement of support for the importance of funding capacity of our partners, so that the partners that we rely on every day to do all this work actually have the ability to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. So in that, we're really proud to be the department that's leading this new program. I wanted to do a few introductions, and then we're going to go into the meat of this workshop, which is really focused on we're in the middle of the public comment period of our guidelines. So we'll be looking for your input into how to shape this program so that it can best serve you all in the work you do. So to start, I wanted to, Melinda introduced herself already, but Melinda is helping us with outreach and workshops, is one of our leaders in the SALT program and other programs, multi-benefit land repurposing. So really happy and pleased to have her help on this effort as well. Jenny DiStefano is going to be the lead for the program amongst our team. So you'll see her kind of leading the work beyond this workshop going forward. And then Gail Chun is also wishing she was back in Hawaii here on the chat, but Gail was one of our longest standing grant managers who will also be helping us with the program. You guys have one of the deepest benches in grant management working on this effort, and I think we should all be excited to kick this off. So without more to say and more rambling, I'm gonna kind of kick it back to Melinda and Jenny and for the next items of the agenda. Thanks, everyone.
Super. Thanks, Kaylee. Appreciate that. So now for just a quick overview of the agenda. So we've allowed about an hour for the workshop with plenty of time left at the end for question and answer period. And since we'll be referring to the draft guidelines at various times throughout the webinar, it'd be great for you to have some of these documents handy. And I think Jenny just popped a link into the chat. So you can, if you click on that link, you can access the PDF of the guidelines there. And we hope you've had a chance to take a look at them in advance of today. So during the presentation, we'll do an overview of the Climate Smart Land Management Program. We'll review the guidelines for the capacity building and technical assistance grants that are being offered through this program. And we're also going to talk about funding availability, eligibility criteria, application processes, and timeline. Jenny, it looks like maybe pop that in the chat one more time, if you don't mind. And then we will open things up to hear from you. And throughout the presentation, feel free to pop your questions into the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And we are also doing this, we're also using our idea boards, and I'll talk about that in just a second, as another way to gather feedback from you all. So we've used it in some of our other workshops and people have really enjoyed it. So, so let me just go to that one really quick. this slide. So this is what the idea boards look like. And I think, Jenny, did you pop that link into? Yeah. So this is, if you follow the link to the idea boards, it'll come up with this idea boards. And there's 5 different buckets that we have here. One is about eligible applicants. So if you have some feedback for that or some questions there, eligible activities, some of the proposed deliverables, partnerships and collaboration, and then just sort of an other bucket. So again, it's just a place to see. Let's see. Has anybody seen the link? Oh, okay. Looks like people are seeing it. So the way that this works is once you click on it, once you go to this website, you can, if you want to make a comment, like in the eligible applicants, you just hit that little plus button and it brings up this window and you can type away in here. And then just once you close the window, Teams doesn't hate you. Don't take it personally. And then you can just enter it in here and then just close the window by clicking there. You can always go back in and edit it if you like. And if someone made a comment that you really like, you can just you can just give it a thumbs up. So again, this is just an additional tool. If it feels like too much, don't worry about it. But we found it's a nice way to just collect information and a good place for you to just, it has a little more room and it's a little more interactive than just doing it through chat. But again, whatever feels comfortable is absolutely fine. Let's see, it is limited to 120 characters. So if you have a lot to say, you may need to do a couple different, may need to click it and do a couple different notes. So with that, so sort of to give you ideas on how to provide feedback. And again, we'll have plenty of time at the end for conversations. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jenny.
All right, welcome everybody. It's so great to see all of you here and thanks for attending. We're really excited about this program. To give you a little bit of background, this came about because of Executive Order N82-20, which called for restoring nature and landscape health to deliver on climate change goals for California and other critical priorities. The Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy helps implement the governor's executive order and expand climate action on natural and working lands. This program, the Climate Smart Land Management Program, is designed to increase the capacity of state partners throughout California to support implementation of priority nature-based solutions called for in the Natural Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy. You'll notice when you're reading through the guidelines that the scope of this program is intentionally broad and flexible. The purpose for this is to welcome a broad range and expansive range of partners and ideas as to how best to support the growing networks of land manager stewards in California's rich landscapes. So we're not limiting this to any type of specific landscape. You'll notice it says natural and working lands. So we're not being exclusive of either of those. So funding. This funding was allocated through the Budget Act of 2022. And if you wanted to read that, you see on the slide there's the legislative sections up there. This round of funding is going to provide $8.5 million to fund block grants, ranging from $500,000 to $2 million. These numbers are not set. If for some reason you think there should be lower bottom or higher top, let us know. We'd love to hear about that. The block grants will help to develop capacity of both successful applicant organizations. So if you're the grantee, don't forget about building your own capacity. But we also hope that you'll build capacity of other partners within your region. block grantees will be able to award subgrants and subcontracts to complete their proposed activities. In addition, there's also going to be $500,000 available for grants led by tribes. And I should also note, if you've read through the guidelines, you'll notice that we're also going to be offering a regional partnership grant to support integrated opportunities for nature-based climate solutions. But that funding for the regional partnership grant will be allocated through a separate solicitation process. And you'll see here a list of eligible entities. We have Resource Conservation District, Cooperative Extension, any state conservancies, land trusts, parks districts, local governments, community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, and of course, tribal governments, and tribal nonprofit organizations. So the goals and activities that we're funding. First of all, one of the primary focuses is capacity building. That means building and sustaining organizational capacity to strengthen capacity and technical ability to implement climate smart land management on natural and working lands. We're also hoping to expand and increase the diversity of statewide partners to accomplish natural and working lands climate smart goals, including implementation of priority-based, nature-based solutions and other cross-cutting priorities. If you look on the guidelines, there's some examples of the types of activities we'll be funding or that we're hoping to fund on page 4. We will also be funding technical assistance. Technical assistance will be to strengthen capacity and increase the technical abilities of all land managers. Types of activities funded in this category can include activities that provide targeted support to an organization, communities, practitioners, anybody who has a development need or resource gap. We also plan to increase the ability of tribes to lead natural and working lands programs that support tribal objectives and help achieve natural and working lands climate smart goals. Another activity is conducting strategic planning. The planning will be to develop to come up with a list of projects that are priorities for whatever region you're working in. Additionally, we plan to have people developing projects. This includes everything from planning the project to developing partnerships, finding funding, and of course, permitting. The goal is to develop a pipeline of climate smart landscape management projects that will meet local, state, federal, and tribal goals. And we're hoping these grants will complement existing capacity, technical assistance, and other implementation programs at the local, state, federal, and tribal government levels. Finally, we are allowing people to conduct demonstration projects with this funding. These projects will be projects that are trying out something new or demonstrating something that's innovative and hasn't been done before in your region. And excuse me, the funding will provide flexible and efficient support to block grantees so they can lead expeditious and adaptive programs. So let's take
Jenny.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
A little too fast forward there.
Oh, sorry.
Hey Jenny, can I jump in really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just kind of put some kind of like underscore some points here. So this program, if you think about it, if you kind of reverse engineer from our state's strategies, our climate smart land management strategy, our some of the components of the water resilience portfolio, like the land conservation 30 by 30 work. If you think about the supply chains that need to be in place to accomplish those ambitious goals, this program is trying to make eligible project types that can fulfill all of those steps of the supply chain that get you to implementation, from the beginning of the process of developing a vision through a strategic plan to targeted, technical assistance for those groups that really need hand-holding, to capacity around the development of just staff time to help develop strategies, develop projects, to the actual money that's spent to get projects shovel ready. We want to activate that whole pipeline so that our implementation agencies who have implementation funds, will have this steady stream of solid, good projects representing, an equitable collection of communities and practitioner organizations. And as you read through these guidelines, to think about what, I guess the ask is, as you read through these guidelines, think about what your needs are to accomplish these goals and see if you can see them in those project types. Because we tried to be expansive and cover all of the different steps, but we very likely could have left stuff out. But that was all I wanted to jump in on.
Hi, Catherine. Well, I'm gonna let Jenny just kind of finish this up real quick, if that's okay, or was that question sort of directed?
I can ask it later. It's absolutely, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
So we have included draft application materials in the draft guidelines, and these, of course, will be finalized when the guidelines are released. It's all pretty standard. Applicants will be required to complete some standard forms, including the cover sheet, work plan, budget, answer a few questions. I think if you take a look at it, you'll see that it's fairly straightforward. A few other things that may be required that you might want to start thinking about now are a resolution from your governing body, something that says, hey, yes, we want to submit this grant and we're willing to take it if it's awarded. Support letters from participating organizations. And really that's what the bulk of the application will include. But it's probably a good idea to get a little bit of a running start on the resolution. I know for a lot of you, sometimes that will take a while, and support letters. So as far as the timelines, we are planning to release these guidelines between the final guidelines between March 17th and March 31st. We're looking for comments from you by March 10th. So we're going to try and move as quickly as possible after we get your comments to turn around the final guidelines. And then applications will be due on May 8th. We're going to allow a little bit longer for tribal applications. Those are going to be due April 8th. And awards will be announced in July. So it's a little bit fast, but you can go ahead and take a look at the application material now, get a head start, and of course, let us know what you think. And that's where we're moving right now. Our next slide is about questions and comments.
Thanks, Catherine, for waiting. I knew we just had one more slide to finish, so I didn't mean to cut you off there, but feel free to jump in.
Okay, I think I have two questions. First, kind of bounced off what Kaylee said, which is, I appreciated the way that you listed the vision and had the different other programs. So when a couple of times you use climate smart landscape management as a term, and I just wanted to confirm that that's basically the kinds of projects that arise from these different programs that are listed on page 1. Just trying to get a sense of defining what climate smart landscape management is.
So the broad goal is to accomplish those types of, actions on the landscape that help support climate resilience and climate
Okay.
mitigation. So that's about as expansive as you can get. It covers the
Yep.
basis of pretty much all natural resources programs, and
Okay.
so.
Okay, great. And then the only other question that I had was I wasn't sure I understood what the grant term was.
The length of time, like 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
These are 3-year grants.
3-year grants? Okay, great.
Super. Perfect. Thanks, Shannon. Alrighty, let me grab these. There's a couple quick questions in the chat, and then NWS, I will call on you. Serena's asking, do you anticipate funding for this program in 2024? In other words, will there be potentially funding next year?
I think we proposed it in the governor's budget, and the legislature in the budget process will determine that. So there's $6 million additional funding proposed, but for a future round, but that's to be determined down the road.
Perfect. And then Dina asked about the timeline. So Dina, I believe that we answered, I think the 3-year term is what you are looking for. So hopefully that answered your question. If not, just go ahead and raise your hand. And then I will go to NWS. I know you have a name too.
It's Nancy, but see, Teams, it hates me, so it won't even say my name.
Hi,
I'm
Nancy.
Nancy from CRCD. I was wondering how detailed the proposals will need to be. For instance, we would be looking at a large number of RCDs that would have a large number of ways to use this funding. Would it make sense to sort of have a few descriptions of pots, of, okay, some RCDs will do these activities and some will do these and some will do these, or would you want very specific details and budgets and deliverables around each of the sub grantees, which is basically what they would be, or subcontractors?
Guess I'll go there. So the way that I think we'll see both types of applications come in. So I think we'll see some with very detailed plans around how their partners will spend these funds. And we'll see other proposals that are more of a kind of a demonstration of the ability of an organization to run a program of this size, the vision of how they will who their network of partners will be and how strong that network is, and then their vision for how it will roll out. Understanding that will change as when you get the grant, you can then kind of develop who gets what, how that's laid out. We also have another complicating factor where we will likely see overlapping proposals for the types of capacity and maybe in the same regions or in the same kind of subject area. And we have language in the guidelines that gives us some ability to negotiate that out because we don't want to duplicate effort in the same place or on the same thing if we don't need to. So there's a lot of it depends. What we've experienced in our other programs is that if you can come through the door with a strong statement of, we have the fiscal and administrative capacity and to run a program like this, we have a strong network to implement the vision. We have a vision, that goes a long way. Because for us, running a block grant means we're giving some of our power over to an entity to lead this for the state. So we need to have that confidence in that organization, fiscally, administratively, and policy-wise.
I've heard those words somewhere recently. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Nancy. Appreciate it. And Dina, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity. This is really helpful. I have a couple of questions. The first one, would there be an opportunity to have a meeting with your team to talk about a project idea or a program idea, capacity building idea, and kind of work that through and see if it's fits well, or maybe some things need to be tweaked to make it fit better into the grant program? So that's my first question.
Great.
Yeah, we always, in all of our programs, we always provide technical assistance through the grant application process. You know, we're here, time permitting. Jenny, I don't know if you have anything to add there from prior programs.
Yeah, absolutely. We will work with you within reason, of course. So feel free to shoot your questions over once the applications are released. But even more importantly, now we'd love to have feedback on the guidelines. So once you get a chance to look those over.
And then the last question is, I think most of you already know this answer, but I don't. Block grant versus a different kind of grant. What's the difference? Please let me know.
So with a block grant, oh, I'm sorry, Kaylee, where are you going to go? With a block grant, we give out grants to a higher capacity entity who then goes out and gives money to other organizations in their region. So we have run several of some block grant programs before. It's always a really successful way to distribute money. And as Kaylee mentioned before, it's giving away a little bit of our power over to the block grantee, because we trust them and they're proven to have the capacity and ability and interest to be a block grantee.
I would only add that, especially with like East Bay Regional Parks or some of our conservancies we've worked with, you know, they give sub grants, but that sometimes they also bring in partners so they can demonstrate that they're having a broad, big impact across a big landscape with multiple practitioner partners involved together. So sub grants to other agencies is a little hard when you're talking about your own ownership, land ownership, but there's a way to kind of bring in the demonstration of collaboration and bigger partnerships. That helps.
Thank you.
Super. Did that answer your questions?
Yes.
Oh, great. Perfect. Hey, Garrett. Good to see you. Go for it.
Hi, Garrett Wong, Climate Program Manager for the County of Santa Barbara. Two questions. Is there a minimum size region that you're looking for or would be eligible for, let's say, like the block grant? So could that be limited to one county, or does it need to be larger than one county? And then second question is, for any project that results in an estimated amount of greenhouse gas emissions, does the state claim that reduction, or would the local jurisdiction be able to claim that?
So starting with the regional question. So these block grants can be statewide or regional. We don't define what a region could be. I think the idea is that if it is a regional block grant, that it's of a big enough size to have, you know, multiple parties, multiple landscapes, multiple projects. So a county would definitely be big enough, quote unquote. But I think you could also think of smaller than county sizes, where if you had, you know, individual, like a watershed or something that was sizable. And, you know, if you can demonstrate that a block grant will be effective at kind of engaging a broad group of people on a broad variety of projects, I think you kind of fit the bill. And then the statewide grant can be, you know, partnerships across the state, like maybe Nancy and the CARCD would have a, you know, work with different RCDs across the state on a pollinator program. I'm just making something up right now, but that would work as well. With the carbon benefits, you know, the state technically doesn't score. I mean, we register carbon benefits from our cap and trade revenue funded programs. We estimate carbon benefits from our other funded programs, but we don't claim them like we would claim mitigation outside of those reductions that are actually counted in the scoping plan towards the accomplishment of our statutory target. So I think the short answer is yes, you'd be able to, you know, if these are activities built into your climate plan, you could still count these towards your climate goals. you know, they also may show up as in our reporting of state expenditures of what we're able to accomplish, but that's not like a mitigation reporting function. It's just informational.
Okay. Thanks, Kaylee. Did that answer your questions, Garrett? Great. Thank you. Great questions. Samuel, feel free to take yourself off of mute.
Apologies, Teams is not my normal. So I represent the Golden Gate Biosphere Network, which is a network in the Bay Area of 20 land managers, but my host fiduciary sponsor is based out of Michigan. Would they be able to apply for this grant, or should I go through one of my network members?
Kaylee,
Waiting for Jenny. Or even Gail. I don't.
That's something we haven't really addressed yet, but I'm thinking the more local you can be, the better.
Gotcha. I mean, we've got the partner group includes, you know, NOAA, the National Park Service, Marin County Parks, Audubon Canyon Ranch. So we have NGO, state, and federal partners. Given that setup, is there a preference for applicant agency within this structure?
We haven't considered allowing federal agencies to be eligible applicants. So of the people that you just listed, it sounds like the NGO would probably be the best fit.
All right, thank you. I know that was kind of a bit of a curveball question, but I appreciate you taking a swing at it.
Good question. And I think, again, you know, as you get your project maybe more formed out, that's an opportunity to talk to Jenny to get some technical assistance on that in more detail. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Sure. JK, you can take yourself off of mute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, just please excuse my ignorance on this, but I was just wondering about, we have a property in the city and we're trying to acquire it, and it has 175 trees, 30 smaller trees and native shrubs, a historical home, 3 of them. And I was just wondering if this is something that we would be eligible for if we were under a nonprofit, but we don't have our own, but this is how we get our funds. So, and we want to use it as like a couple of things, because it's got greenhouses that are still able to be used. And we're just thinking it's right next to several middle school and a preschool and lots of elementary schools. So I was just wondering if this is something that we could apply for. And again, just asking. That's my question.
Okay,
No,
great.
thank-
Great. Thank
I mean,
you.
I would say the project sounds like it could, you know, not knowing the property, but assume, you know, the acquisition project sounds like it would fit in one of the categories of, you know, increasing climate resilience or climate mitigation. As an individual project proponent, I think you'd need to be within a larger, you know, this would probably fit below a block grant. So if you had someone applying for a block grant and then you would work with them as one of the projects under that block grant portfolio, that's how I could see this fitting. As an individual project, we really aren't designing this program to fund capacity for individual projects.
The city would be acquiring the property, so we would partner with the city, sort of a thing. So yeah, so you don't think so, or there's a possibility? Because
I don't think the city applying for funding for this one project would fit the guidelines. if the city were applying to be a block grantee to fund multiple projects of this type, that could fit better. But I'm kind of looking to
Right.
Jenny as well. And then I'd also, I don't know what kind of land this is, but it may also be a project suitable for our SALT capacity, our Sustainable Agricultural Land Conservation Program capacity program as well. That's kind of coming out as well. We can share those guidelines in the chat because those are individual project focused. But Jenny, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds right. I think it's possible that it would fit as part of a suite of projects that the city is supporting, but I think you're right. And that type of individual project, this isn't really that type of funding program where we're just funding, one specific parcel acquisition.
I
We're
see.
trying to think a
Okay.
little bit broader on this.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'm just looking any way I can because this property is only 6.6 acres and the location it doesn't need to have 31 houses on it, but it's good for something else. Anyway, so I think that's enough. I think you get my drift, so.
Great. Thanks for the question. And again, you can feel free to follow up. I popped a link into the chat with the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Program. And you can take a look at
Thank
that.
you.
It would need to be, I
Thank
mean,
you.
feel free to reach out to us to talk about that and see if that would be a potential fit for that. And there was a quick question from Dina in the chat, and I see you've raised your hand as well. Did you want to take yourself off on mute? There was a question you had in regard to monitoring, so feel free to go ahead and talk.
I have a different question, but yeah, this one I've just noticed when I've talked to different granting agencies, they don't want to fund anything that has planning in the title or monitoring as a part of the grant. So I'm just wondering if that can be a part of this grant to be included in what's we're applying for.
Planning, definitely. That's part of one of the main purposes is to fund planning and project development. So
Okay.
yes, one of the points of this program is to fill those kinds of gaps, and to help build capacity, help fill those capacity gaps that other programs don't fund.
That's great. I'm pretty excited about this one just as for that reason. So I'm wondering, I'm looking at the guidelines and it's very project oriented, like you're going to be working towards a project with certain deliverables. But I'm not seeing maybe it's in here, I don't see it, but more of, I'm looking at a coordinator position to augment and support a network in the Bay. Because I don't have the time to do it. That would be working with multiple landowners to work through solutions like livestock pond management. Like it's very unique to our area and it's just a real problem. So it's the deliverable isn't a project, it's a way to bring people together to talk about what our issues are and then to be able to approach the permitting agencies to then, negotiate something hopefully that will work for all of us to solve our goals around land management, biodiversity and all of that. So I've got several of those kind of ideas. Now, would that fit in here, even though it's not really like a shovel ready project to be implemented? A restoration.
I mean, I like to use the kind of term outcome and project interchangeably. We want to see something tangible and real to improve the landscape. And if that is an outcome from a different management strategy, or if that's restoring a stream with stuff, like those are both positive outcomes. But what I don't think this is for baseline capacity that is more just like foundational stuff, like I'll just use funding insurance policies for nonprofits, right? Like things that really help and are really important and they're like critical for for organizations to do all this work, but they're the budget language that we're working within said the word project like 5 times. So we're trying to stretch that as far as we can in that supply chain without losing that connection.
Hi, do you want to take one car?
Yep.
Thank you.
But Not on mute. Great. Did
Oh, so
that
take
help-
2 cars?
Hopefully that helped answer your question. Wonderful, great. And Garrett, I still see is your hand still up from before, or do you have another, would you like to ask another question?
No, I don't know how to put it down.
Okay, sounds good. Samuel, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is building off of that previous question. Is development of a position considered, a project or opportunity within this grant, considering it's labeled as a capacity development grant? Or am I misunderstanding?
No, I would say yes. I think
Yes.
if that position is helping towards those positive outcomes, and that position is putting together projects or helping stakeholders deliver projects. We include staff time in here, but we have experience with Jenny's prior programs and other programs where staffing is really like, it comes down to the main thing people ask for.
Yeah, because my position is that, and basically as soon as I came on board within my organization, it became pretty clear that it was more than a one-person job. So writing a proposal to provide another position would massively increase our ability to implement projects within our larger member network. So is that is in line with the purpose of this grant, or a potential quote project that could be funded under this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question, Samuel. And Gregory.
Hi. Our organization is planning to do a major revamp of our landowner outreach and education program, and we had been considering the SALC capacity grant. We started to look at these draft guidelines and realizing that we're also looking at traditional easement and full acquisition possibilities. We were thinking this might work better, but during this conversation, I feel like I'm backing away from that with all of the partner emphasis and the block grant nature. Would I be correct in stating that for like an inter-organizational effort, we should focus on SALC, or even is there another program that we might want to use to consider developing our own outreach program?
So yeah, this program is to fund block grants. So if this is like an individual project or an individual action with one organization, I think that's probably more better suited for a program like SALC or other capacity programs that are coming up, across other departments, if those are there. Anything to add, Jenny?
I'd say it could probably be part of a package. So if you were a sub-grantee of a block grantee, for example, it might fit there. But otherwise, there are other capacity building programs available right now. SALC Capacity is one. And then there's several other agencies that are starting to offer capacity programs now. So I'd look at those as well.
Okay, that's what I was gathering. Thank you. Is there a possibility that any more details about other agencies with capacity grants could be maybe dropped in the chat? Or
Yeah, I keep hearing about WCB opening up their grant process to capacity, but I don't have details on that. We dropped a SALC program in there and you're watching that. I don't have any others beyond those that I can flag, but if others on this call do, I welcome them to throw things in.
Yeah, definitely. And for those that aren't familiar with it, and we'll get the link here for you in a second. One way to sort of track some of the state grants is through the state grant portal. If you're not familiar with it, it's something that's been out about maybe 2 years, not quite 2 years. It's a great one-stop shop to search all grants, both open and closed. So you can It's got a pretty nice handy search function, so you could just go in there and try. Got too many windows open. You can just go in there and search, like you could search for capacity, and you should be able to find stuff there. So that just, that won't necessarily tell you something that's coming 6 months from now unless someone posts it ahead of time, but at least you have that as another resource. So there you go. Alrighty. Gregory, is there that place? Yes, that place. We both put the same link in, so that's perfect. Don't see any more questions in the chat. I don't see any more raised hands. So I think what we'll do is just move ahead to, oh, Karina, go ahead.
Thank you. Let's see, I have my video on. Just a quick question. I was just looking in the guidelines and was pleased to see that it looks like some eligible activities are equipment purchases. And so for something like what you were mentioning about sort of the pipeline to support a lot of projects around restoration and resilient agriculture, the native seed industry comes to mind. Are there any limitations around like equipment for that type of sort of implementation capacity building? Sort of more like on the agronomic side is what I'm thinking of to support that like physical supply of plant materials to support this work.
You will need to make an argument for why you need the equipment. And I imagine there will be some things that we're just not going to buy. With one of our other programs, we always say we're not buying helicopters. We haven't quite figured out what the helicopter equivalent with this program is yet, but
okay, well, we're not going to buy any helicopters. Even just things like I'm thinking like seed storage, even capacity or things like that. What would be considered, but of course with the connection to the work that needs to be done.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow up with more specifics if needed. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, this is not primarily an equipment buying program. But if you can make an argument that you need a piece of equipment to build the capacity, then there's a decent chance.
I mean, in our forest and fire work, we've seen, if some of our partners have been able to buy different equipment and they lend it out to all of their partners, and all of a sudden you have, like, you're just quickly expanding impact across multiple counties and multiple programs. And it's great. And it's hard to find money for equipment. So we're just sticking our neck out there and putting it in here to try to figure it out.
No, that's helpful. Even a cooperative model might be an interesting thing. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the question, Karina. So I'll go ahead and we have just another slide, just kind of a next steps piece, and we can still answer questions as well, but just take a minute just to kind of go through the next steps, Jen, if you want to do that.
Sure thing. So first date you should be aware of, March 10th. That's when the comment on the guideline period closes. You can send me comments at this email address here up until March 10th. And I will respond when you send the comment. If you don't get a response from me, then let me know. Send it again, because there's a possibility that it didn't go through. After that, the guidelines will be published. We're aiming for March 17th through March 31st, and they'll be available on our website, the same spot where the draft guidelines are now. And applications will be due May 8th.
Sorry, I'm just popping your email in the chat. Perfect. Seeing a question from Dina, would it be good to be able to fund conference convenings in a block grant from this program? I don't see that explicitly. So attending or creating, I guess would be one question I would have, but. In other words, creating convenings with people, or are you attending convenings? Yeah.
If to me that that feels a little further out of orbit from like that project, achievement of a outcome or project, even though I know they're really important, but we don't prohibit it, but it's a stretch. I would characterize it. I don't know. Jenny, like, what do you think?
I'd say conferences are a stretch. Convenings, it kind of depends what you mean by that. Are you talking about just bringing people together to discuss plan development? Then yes, definitely. So I guess bottom line is it depends on how you define it and exactly what you're talking about. But I agree that conferences would be a little bit far removed from what the purpose of the funding
I
is.
mean, when we go to the legislature and defend what we spend our money on, they're going to go back to their budget bill language that's very focused on projects or outcomes, and we're going to need to be able to throw that through line on how these investments got to those legislative direction of achieving something. So in your applications, be cognizant of like, how would you defend this in front of the legislature down the road if you were in that position? Because that's kind of like how I'm thinking about this. In case I have to go in front of the legislature and defend this at some point. So.
And then Sam's just kind of adding on to that what if the convening is around climate change adaptation strategies following a climate vulnerability assessment?
Yeah, it would be hard unless it had very specific like outcomes identified. Outcomes being like physical, tangible outcomes on the ground, not, building a, awareness outcome.
Does that help, Dina and Samuel?
Yeah, that helps. We're completing a 22 resource climate vulnerability assessment, and at the end of it, there will be a conference that has the recommendations based off of those predictions and the modeling. The goal being that it can be immediately implemented by land managers in the area. Is that my microphone providing feedback? If it is, I really apologize.
That's okay. I'm not sure. No, it's stopped now, so I'm not sure. Might potentially might. Yeah.
Sounded like a kazoo.
Yeah, that was really
I think it
strange.
might be Dina's. It's okay,
I
Dina.
I don't know if my question got through all of that. I was a little distracted.
It did.
Okay.
It did.
I even just to be transparent about my thinking right now. Even that, because it's a set of recommendations, unless there's like a custodial like ownership to accomplishing those, it's a little hard. One example that we have is we fund prescribed burn associations in our forest and fire program. They hold a lot of gatherings for training and like information sharing to accomplish landscape goals. And you can draw a really clean line from those gatherings to work happening across the state in the field. That's like practitioner education versus some, if it's a bigger policy conversation about a plan that kind of has a long way before it becomes something real, I think that becomes harder to justify.
Yeah, our focus was more on immediate application in the field by our 20 members. Based off of the information. So the reason I'm asking these follow-up questions is if we decide to pursue this, I want to be able to explain to the member network exactly where the parameters are. So thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Samuel. Appreciate that. And realizing we're getting close to time here, we're happy to stay a little bit longer with questions, but just want to acknowledge that. Nancy.
Thanks. Just a quick one. This may not even matter, but I wanted to ask it. So there may be changes to the guidelines after the comments come in, and I'm wondering if like we miraculously got something done so fast that we had a draft proposal before those final guidelines were published, if we would know what had changed. Does that get pointed out, or should we just be looking carefully?
We will show what the changes were.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for this really great, this is just really amazingly awesome what you've put together here. It's really great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nancy. Really appreciate that comment. Garrett?
Yeah, I I guess I wanted to follow up on the conversation with the convenings and the gatherings. So I think one thing to keep in mind is that land managers and land stewards are more face-to-face type people, and sometimes getting Zoom gatherings is less ideal for land managers, especially when they need to look and see and feel, let's say, like best practices that are in the field already. If we're trying to do some education or training or orientation to, let's say, like a future grant program that they could be applying for, we're gonna need to be able to bring people together to give them that tangible experience of, you know, what the benefits are and what the logistics are of implementing any of these kinds of strategies. So just wanted to leave that thought with you. And then yeah, and I think, you know, for the purposes of gatherings, I think it shouldn't be discounted because, you know, I'm part of a collaborative and we're bringing together different stakeholders on the subject. And I think the importance of familiarity with other people, especially when we're talking about like government agencies and land managers, there's a lot of trust that has to be built. And sometimes you can't do that without just having regular convenings. It's something that, you know, transactions alone won't be able to overcome. It's something that has to be done through relationships.
Thanks, Garrett. And we do welcome comments, so feel free to, you know, and that's what this comment period is about. So feel free to send those along as well, Garrett. Appreciate that. So just final slide is really just, again, the link that we've already provided. As we've mentioned a couple times, you know, we're here for you for technical assistance if you have questions. I mean, you all brought up a lot of great questions and provided some great comments. Feel free to submit your comments more formally to Jenny at the email address that we provided a little earlier. It's also on the website. And then also some of these more detailed questions, you know, those I think it would be great to sort of talk those through as the guidelines as we start wrapping up guidelines and getting them ready for finalization. So any last thoughts, Jenny or Kaylee? I mean, I just want to let everyone know we really appreciate you being here today and you know, being interested in this program as well as providing feedback. It's really valuable.
Thank you so much, everybody. And we really do look forward to hearing your comments. So I'm hoping for emails from you once you
And
get
I
a
will-
chance to
Yeah, sorry, go
read
ahead.
through.
Yeah, and we'll be following up with a link to the recording and also a PowerPoint, the slides for the PowerPoint. I forgot to mention that earlier. So, and it'll be sent to everyone that registered. So you'll get a copy, and then some folks who were not able to actually participate will get copies too. So with that, I think I'll turn the recording off. And like I said, we'll be here for another couple minutes at least. At least Jenny and I think will be if you have some additional questions. So thanks, everybody.
Hey, if it's